Over the last few weeks, there's been a trending controversy in the Minecraft 1.9 PvP community surrounding Marlow, the current number one player and owner on the MC Tiers PvP tier list. For the last few years, Marlow has been consistently ranked among the best players in the game, going from being the best Crystal PvPer to her recently reaching Tier 1 in every game mode. Despite this, players have come to grow doubtful of her skill, debating whether or not she's potentially using cheats to gain an advantage to achieve fame, publicity, and win important fights. Considering Marlow averages hundreds of thousands of views per video, despite not uploading in high quantity, suggests that many people watch and admire her for her skill. Therefore, it's important to attempt to verify her legitimacy, or lack thereof, not just for her fanbase's sake, but for the competitive integrity of the MC Tiers tier list system, and Minecraft PvP in general. The PvP community deserves to be able to trust in the legitimacy of top players, and to be able to trust the systems in place. Over the last few weeks, there have been countless videos suggesting Marlow may be using cheats to assist her gameplay. In this video, I will be going over much of the evidence provided by many of these creators, and providing my take on it if I think it's warranted to be suspicious of Marlow or not. Granted, I want you to know that this video will not provide a conclusive, factual answer on if Marlow is legitimate or not. However, I still want you to be able to form your own opinion, both through the compiled evidence and through my commentary and additions. All I ask is that people try to be as unbiased and open-minded as possible, since we're talking about possibly the most famous and influential PvPer in recent history. To very quickly preface who I am before going into this video, my name is Mario Kart and I've been playing Minecraft since early 2013 and PvPing since late 2014. I mostly stem from the 1.8 PvP community and I've had my fair share of leaderboard placements over the years, ranging from 2017 all the way up to 2023. Obviously being good at the game doesn't make me an authoritative figure, but after being in the community for so long and playing more Minecraft than 99.9% of people, I think it's safe to say that I can at least provide my logical opinion on what I see. That's enough of me though, let's get into the timeline of events and try and figure out what's going on. My first introduction to Marlow was sometime in 2022. I was in a group chat with a few small creators and she happened to be in there. I remember one of the creators telling me that she was the best 1.9 Crystal PvPer, and that it would be really cool if I got training from her for a video. Around this time I actually made a few videos on the game mode, so it really wasn't a bad idea. Obviously this never came to be, and if I remember correctly, she never said a word in the group chat, likely because some random kid who just had her added just invited her in, but it doesn't really matter. My point is that Marlow's most iconic game mode seems to be Crystal PvP. In fact, 10 of her 15 videos are about Crystal PvP, with the first 9 all being about the game mode. Throughout the years, she has maintained her skill in the mode and has proven to be among the best. So when hearing this, you'd expect most of the cheating allegations to be centered around Crystal PvP, right? Well, it seems that's not the case. Despite this, there are a small handful of clips circulating around, allegedly pointing towards Marlow possibly cheating in Crystal PvP, so let's get into them. The first clip we see here comes from Infomaleak, showcasing Rapture's recent video titled "I Paid Marlow $100 for Every Kill." In this clip we see Marlow placing and filling an anchor, then placing glowstone in what seems to be one tick. This is a common trick in Crystal PvP known as safe anchoring, used to blow up a hole with an anchor while preventing too much self-damage by blocking the feet. The reason some people consider this clip to be suspicious is not the action, but the speed. It's common knowledge that in Minecraft, it's impossible to place more than one block per tick. This is a common problem that bridgers run into while trying to push the limit of the game, and it's the reason why cheats like fast plays, which remove or alter the tick delay, are so strong. Combine that with the fact that Marlow also loaded up the anchor at the exact same time, and it sort of seems like she did actions that would take 3 ticks minimum all in one tick. Now, performing those actions that fast, yes, is quite literally impossible in vanilla Minecraft. However, now is where I will bring up a problem that the majority of these clips have in common, and a problem that we're going to run into a lot in this video. What's the problem? Well, it's that this is a third-person POV clip. Due to Minecraft being a 20 tick per second game, along with servers being hosted by individuals all across the world, it's difficult to ensure the stability of a server or a player at any given time. This is a problem in any video game or online connection whatsoever. I generally call these microstutters. What I mean is that if Marlow, the server, or Rapture simply lagged for 2 ticks during this interaction, we would see what looks like an impossible action occur. Think of it like this. Let's assume Rapture was the one who lagged. On Marlow's screen, you'd see her placing the anchor, then filling it up with glowstone, and then placing another glowstone at her feet. The server would take all these actions sequentially tick by tick, and the other players in range would receive this information. If Rapture's inbound traffic were to spike for only 100 milliseconds, he would have to catch up a whole 2 ticks, and therefore he would receive all 3 actions at exactly the same time. Now, of course, this is a perfect and cherry-picked scenario, but remember, it doesn't have to be Rapture's lag. It could also be Marlow's or the server's, making it more possible. Of course, some of these scenarios might result in other visible symptoms of lag, such as Marlow's character stuttering or freezing, which in this case we do not see. Another likely theory is that this is a symptom of video rendering settings. Many players in the Minecraft community attempt to record and render their videos in different frame rates or use external programs to achieve frame blending, which simulates blur in the videos, creating a smooth experience when you're watching the video. It's the reason why a lot of people's videos look better than your actual gameplay, especially if you have a 60Hz monitor. In this clip, we can see both the anchor and the glowstone have a frame where they are halfway transparent. Now, obviously blocks in Minecraft aren't temporarily see-through when you place them, so that proves that this video has gone through some sort of frame blending. Although this technique does usually make the video look better, it always loses some sort of quality when creating the illusion of a smoother video, which could have manipulated what actually happened and shown us an impossible scenario. Although I think that this could point to some sort of fast play safe anchor cheat, I'm slightly doubtful as Marlow's POV shows up many times in this video, meaning she recorded it. It would seem unlikely to record using such a cheat, as if we saw Marlow's POV of what happened in this specific clip and she was actually cheating, it would be very obvious and it would be the smoking gun to all of this. Again, the problem with this clip is that it's from the third-person POV. In Minecraft, you can almost never use third-person clips to 100% prove someone is cheating, and this will be quite a problem in many of these clips to come. Surprisingly, there was only one other relevant clip in Crystal PvP that I found which suggested Marlow might be cheating. This clip, also posted on Info Malik's channel, supposedly comes from a now-deleted video by someone named Reefwan. I'll let the clip play out before commentating over it, so here it is.
It wasn't there, because it... Right there! Did you see that, chat? Okay, look at the anchors in her hotbar.
The specific detail was actually caused by a performance mod that updates the in-game HUD at a lower frame rate.
This clip starts out with Dr. Donut showcasing an unusual clip where an anchor seems to be placed without Marlow ever switching to the slot to hold it. It then cuts to Marlow explaining that this was an intended side effect of a performance mod called Exordium, which renders in-game UI at a lower frame rate. Due to this, Marlow would be able to switch to her anchor, place it, and then switch back to another slot in between frame updates, causing the illusion that she never switched to her anchors in the first place. The creator of the video then downloads the version of the mod that Marlow would have been using based off the date she uploaded the video, which would have been version 1.01, but then showcases a strange discrepancy. When using the mod, the hotbar cooldown indicator also experiences lag, which you'd expect to happen as the mod lowers the UI's frame rate. However, in the clip of Marlow's gameplay, that doesn't seem to be the case, with her cooldown indicators running smoothly. This is unusual and somewhat suspicious. However, there's one caveat to this. The mod can be configured. I first made sure to download the version of the mod that Marlow most likely had, which was version 1.01. I then decided to test this by changing the frame rate GUI option to 5, just like Reefwan did in the video, and yes, I was able to easily replicate Marlow's block placement. And the cooldown indicators were laggy as expected. However, then I just upped the frame rate to 30, and after a bit of trial and error, I was still able to replicate Marlow's block placement. But this time, the cooldown indicators were not laggy. That's when I realized by slowing down the footage, the indicator natively runs at 20 frames per second. This means that as long as Marlow used a frame rate GUI setting of at least 20 FPS in the Exordium mod, then the cooldown indicator would and should not be laggy. Yet with enough precision, she would still be able to pull off the sketchy technique. For some reason, the creator of this exposed video didn't think about the idea that Marlow might have been using a higher setting than 5 FPS on the mod, which I imagine most people would do. I consider this allegation fully debunked at this point, but it actually gets a bit weirder than that. Let's roll back the clip to what Marlow was saying a bit earlier.
The specific detail was actually caused by a performance mod that updates the in-game HUD at a lower frame rate.
Marlow debunks this point by bringing up the fact that this mod has an option called Force Hotbar Updates, which forces the hotbar to only update whenever you change slots. This option seems to have its own effects on how the hotbar looks, but it doesn't really matter to go too deep into it, because Marlow did not and could not have used this setting. Yo, what's up? It's Editor Cart here. Hopefully this is one of the only few times you have to see me make an editing revision in this video, but for some reason I didn't really explain why Marlow wasn't able to use this setting. It's simply because it wasn't in this version of the mod, so yeah. This is a strange discrepancy for sure, but it was not the reason why the anchor slot was never visually selected. It's not just because the option simply didn't exist, but also because it would actually cause the opposite effect and stop the suspicious clip from occurring in the first place. Likely what happened was when Marlow was attempting to debunk this clip, she was on a newer updated version of the mod and incorrectly assumed the issue was caused by a setting that did not exist yet. With that out of the way, I'd still say the clip is most likely debunked. Now that we've gotten the Crystal PvP clips out of the way, it's time to get into some of the more popular clips that have been circulating around the internet. The following clips are provided by Sub4Giro, whose video got attention from top players like Swight, a person who I'll get into in a second. Yo, what's up guys, it's Editing Card again. I'm pretty sure that the creator by the name of Nice Crit was actually the first one to post a lot of these clips, so I'm going to be giving equal credit to him as well as Sub4Giro. Just thought I'd throw that in. The first two clips provided come from a tier test between Diamond Pop player Pig Ears and Marlow, so I'll let Sub4Giro explain it.
And around 35 seconds into the clip, Marlow starts getting some really interesting head movements between potting and trading hits with Pig Ears.
In the first clip, Marlow performs some strange flicks while in the corner of the map. A lot of players might find these head movements suspicious, but I personally don't. These flicks are very much humanly achievable by good players and are not nearly as hard as they look. What's actually strange about this clip are not the flicks itself, but the reasoning. Why would you need to hit these nasty flicks in a fight, let alone in a competitive tier test? Well, when I first watched this clip, the flicks were not the first thing that jumped out to me, but the knockback. Pig Ears takes pretty unusual knockback during this clip, getting sent to the right for seemingly no reason. This is where Swight's comment comes in. Hey guys, it's Editing Cart here. I know, I'm sorry, I've been sort of interrupting the video, but trust me, this is actually important. A couple days ago, Swight left a comment on this Sub4Giro video, which helped explain a lot of the things that people found suspicious about Marlow's gameplay, and I actually referenced this comment quite a few times in the next few minutes because I thought it was pretty good. Unfortunately for us, yesterday, Swight decided to inexplicably delete this comment, and I'm not so sure why. This is really unfortunate for me because me and him sort of had like a little back and forth in the replies of this comment, and I'm really sorry, but I'm not really used to making these videos. This is my first time, so I'm not really used to evidence sort of disappearing under my nose like that, so I didn't archive any of our replies. Luckily for me, I have a 35-ish page script and I've written a bunch of notes, so I can reconstruct a lot of our comments with about 90% accuracy, which I'm going to have to do. For transparency's sake, in the top left, there'll be a little indicator which says like, hey, this is a reconstructed screenshot, or like, hey, this is a real screenshot, which actually, I didn't have to reconstruct. So for transparency's sake, I just wanted to tell you guys that I will be having to reconstruct some of our conversation. So just please trust me, I'm not trying to misconstrue his words or anything like that. I wrote the script before he deleted his comments, so whatever I say is 100% accurate, but some of the things you may see may actually be reconstructed by me, so I'm sorry. I should have archived all of this. I just didn't expect him to delete it. You can make up your own theories about why you think he might have deleted it. I don't know. I'm not going to mention it. He can delete whatever he wants. Maybe he changed his mind. Whatever, just keep that in the back of your head. He did delete his comment, and I am going to have to reconstruct some of this. So please, trust me, I'm not trying to misconstrue his words. I did have my gripes with this comment, but I also thought it was really, really good in other ways. So yeah, just keep that in the back of your mind. Thanks for watching, and I'm sorry, I'll stop yapping. Swight tries to debunk and explain each clip in the video, and his explanation for this clip is knockback displacement strategy. Now, of course, me doing my research to this video wanted to know what he meant by this, so I searched it up on YouTube to no avail. I asked a few friends if they've heard of it, I checked a few Discord servers, and I read the replies to Swight's comment. It seems like nobody had really heard of this strategy. A day or so later, Swight edited his comment, reading, "To clarify, because everyone is a brick, Knockback displacement is a strategy known to a select few tier 1s that you tier 4s don't understand, skull emoji. I appreciated his informative comment beforehand, but that edit sort of rubbed me the wrong way, so I kind of pressed him for it in the replies. I mean, just think about the timeline of events here. Someone makes a video providing claims that your friend might be cheating. You refute those claims by bringing up something nobody has ever heard of. People in your replies are rightfully confused and ask you what you're talking about. You then proceed to call them bricks and tell them, you just don't get it, bro. You don't get it. Luckily, my reply got a detailed response out of Swight. He said, it was a response to everyone who tried to act like they knew what it was when they don't. I didn't mean it in a way where only some people could understand. I just meant it that these tier 4s responding are talking like they know what it is when they don't. Marlow is about to make a video on the strat, so to explain what's happening, Marlow is flicking her head to the side and flicking back really fast and hitting as soon as possible, which causes her opponent to move in the direction she was looking before she hit. That's why her head movement looks so weird. Yes, it is a real strategy, you could test it yourself. First off, he mentions that his comment was actually a response to everyone in the replies who tried to act like they knew what it was when they don't. The problem is, when you actually look through the replies, there are only 3 comments which mention knockback displacement, and 2 of which are literally politely asking Swight how to perform the strategy. On top of that, again, how is the common player supposed to know what you're talking about if there's no content or public knowledge about said technique? Maybe I took his comment the wrong way and I responded in a rude manner, and if so, I'm sorry Swight, really, because I don't want to come off like I'm jumping on the Marlow hate bandwagon. In fact, I left a comment on this specific video before Swight ever did where I defended Marlow and said the clips aren't substantially enough evidence to convict her of cheating. Despite this, calling the community bricks because they don't understand a technique that they don't even know exists comes off as immature, and it makes your friend Marlow sound guilty, to be truthful, as evident by the unhappy replies after you edited your comment. L. Frederick M's reply says it the best. The thing here that looks exactly like cheating is something only me and Marlow know. I have no evidence that what Marlow is performing here is cheats, and I don't think this guy's comment is the truth, but he represents the average player who reads things like this, which makes it pretty difficult to get to the bottom of all this. Last thing about Swight, I promise. He double-edited his comment right after replying to me, saying, explanation of the strat is somewhere in the replies. The amount of you who said I was lying about it is actually comical. I only found 1, maybe 2 comments of people saying you were lying about knockback displacement. Yes, of course, a large percentage of the community is unwilling to be unbiased and will be toxic to you for no reason. But there's also an equally large amount of the community who will blindly accept Marlow's legitimacy. Shouldn't we aim to be better than this? Anyway, that's enough about Swight. Just thought it was important to mention. Sorry if I ramble a lot. Back on topic with the whole knockback displacement thing. Obviously, since Swight said to test it yourself, I did. As a boxing player, I thought it'd be a pretty good candidate to test this technique. I'll roll the clip so you can see how it went. Alright, so I went ahead and I started up a duel request on my alt account. So we're going to see if I can replicate this like knockback displacement thing. So let's see. So what he said is you flick before you hit them, and then they should take knockback in a different angle. So it's not really doing that. I mean, am I doing it wrong? I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know. Am I doing something wrong? I feel like I would have heard of this or seen this. I don't know. It's just weird. Alright, I went ahead and I sent another duel to my alt, this time on EU, where I get about 90 to 100 ms. We're gonna test it again, because maybe it's a ping thing? Oh yeah, I have to start with virus and threat protection. Actually, hold up. That angle doesn't look quite right. Oh wait, that angle did look weird. Hold up. Can I like make him go backwards? Oh, it's real. That would be, yeah, that would have been impossible. I sent him out of the corner with a hit. I did a perfect 180 and I sent him out of the corner. Huh. Well, alright. So, yeah, after a while of trial and error, I managed to get pretty substantial proof that there was some technique here that was going on. It should, in theory, be impossible to knock someone out of a corner if they're placed up against the wall and you aren't. But in this clip, you can visibly see that I just did it. Interestingly enough, I was made aware of a very similar exploit a few years ago, but on 1.8 servers. Specifically, really bad 1.8 servers, which had poor, buggy or misconfigured spigots. I didn't know much about this bug and didn't look into it. There was a video where someone was doing a 360 in sumo and sent their opponent completely sideways instead of forward, but I completely forgot who posted the video. If I find it, I'll link it in the description, but I was under the impression that any mechanic or exploit like this would have been patched out of the game entirely in later versions, or not exist on modern servers altogether. Nevertheless, this proves there is something there, and it could make sense for Marlow to take advantage of such a strategy in this scenario. Since we have a potential reasoning for Marlow to aim in such an unorthodox way, it's plausible that she genuinely did this on purpose, and therefore I am not too suspicious of this clip altogether. Hopefully Marlow clears this up by posting a video about the technique, and if we're lucky, some gameplay from her POV of the tier test.
And at 3 minutes 59 seconds, Marlow somehow got a hit while in an eating animation. It is believed that there's no render error, as if you listen closer to the sound effect, Marlow did get a full eating sound effect while continuing to trade with Piggies.
Immediately after watching this clip, I was not at all suspicious of Marlow, as I had seen item release bugs like this hundreds of times throughout PvPing. In Vanilla 1.7, there are quite a few ways to intentionally bug out your item release, allowing you to run and eat, drink and eat, charge a bell while running, or run in while blocking your sword, just to name a few. Some of the ways of doing this are right-clicking on a fence, swapping utility items after using one, which was mainly used for potions so that you could drink one and then drink the other while running, or even by dropping food on the same tick you began to eat it. And there's been countless more exploits which PvP servers have encountered and patched over the years. So I would imagine that there are still dozens of ways to intentionally or unintentionally glitch out the item release, allowing Marlow to eat on the server side while having full freedom of movement and being able to swing on the client side. Players claim who are suspicious of this clip deem it as a sign of faulty triggerbot. Triggerbot is a cheat which automatically swings your sword on an entity when you are hovering over them and when the sword is off cooldown. It allows you to get perfect hits in most game modes with swords and is difficult to detect when properly used, that being with some sort of randomized delay, a mischance built in, and more. In fact, I got into a little argument with someone in the replies when I defended Marlow for this clip. I was told that this was some sort of triggerbot glitch where her triggerbot went faulty and didn't factor in that she was eating before going in with the attack, which created an impossible scenario. He then brought up that Marlow also owns MCPvP, the server that they were playing on. This is a fair point which we'll get into later in the video after the clip review section is over. My rebuttal to this guy was that from a programming perspective, having a trigger bot which on occasion would bug out and allow hits while playing seemed improbable, especially coming from the number one player. I know most of you guys watching this aren't programmers, but if you are, try and imagine how you might program the trigger bot. Personally, I would simulate a mouse click to ensure that no illegal swings could ever be produced by my trigger bot in the case of a bug. On top of that, what are the odds that there's some strange edge case where Marlow's triggerbot on occasion attacks while eating? It would more likely happen none of the time or all of the time, but assuming it happened all of the time, if Marlow ever wanted to play on another server, say Mineman Club, she would likely get detected within minutes. Wouldn't we have seen this sooner? It's not as if this clip is unexplainable otherwise, as we already know that item release bugs can be caused all the time by lag or other exploits. After explaining my perspective, the guy responded with, "It's just triggerbot and there's nothing to question about it." I see why this community could run into this problem in the first place, to be honest. Thankfully, Swight's comment from before also likely debunks this whole clip, as he states that it's a consumable optimizer bug. Consumable optimizer is a mod which is intended to remove the delay when consuming items on high ping by enforcing more client-side processing. This attempts to even the playing field by giving high ping players nearly identical or even slightly better eating speed than vanilla low ping players. I could very easily see how a mod like this could cause bugs when it comes to item releases, so with this information combined with the fact that these bugs are somewhat common, has me to believe that this clip is also most likely debunked.
53 minutes into the video, which is the last Netherite pot encounter between Swight and Marlow, it seems that there's a conflict between hitting someone and trying to heal herself as seen in the video. This is a really common head movement with people using cheats like aim assist with triggerbot, where their head turns 360 degree as they're trying to heal at the same time the bot is making them to face their enemy.
The first time I watched this clip, I also didn't think much of it. Again, it's one of those third-person aim clips which I would almost never consider to be adequate enough proof of someone cheating. However, after slowing down the footage, I actually find this clip to be mildly suspicious, mainly the first part. So we see Marlow get crit in the back and she misses a hit right here. Then she gets crit out a bit more and obviously aims down to pot, but she never pulls out her pot and instead sort of just wiggles her head around and does a 360 for some reason. then finally switches to her pot and pots downwards, not before switching to her sword again, hating Swight, and chucking a pot into the air. Now, this clip could easily be chalked up to just Marlow botting out, or as Swight said, giving up and messing around because it was already over. I mean, yeah, fair enough. It was the last fight in Swight versus Marlow's netherite pot fight, and Marlow's totem got popped early while also being down so much saturation, but just the way that she keeps doing full 180s only whenever she pulls her sword out. Yeah, if I was sent this clip without any context and asked if I was suspicious of anything, I would certainly be mildly suspicious. With the context of it being the final fight and Swight already being in a decent lead, I am still somewhat suspicious, because Marlow gave up in the perfect way, which imitated having a high FOV aimbot on sword only, which is exactly the way you would configure aimbot in an aim-heavy mode like netherite pot, where you would still have to look down or look away to use your utility items. But again, this is a third-person aim clip. This could, and should, never be used as indicative proof of anyone cheating. Despite this, for a third-person aim clip, it's decent enough where I wish there was recorded evidence of Marlow's perspective to put it to rest. I wish I could say this is the last time we'd see a sketchy Marlow aim clip in this video, but it definitely will not be. So stay tuned until we get to the evidence that I personally propose later on.
Last but not least would be her insanely accurate hit register on shield stunning. This is not really a single clip, but a bunch, which combines her SMP fights and mace fights mainly.
The final clip in Sub4Jiro's video is arguably the most interesting. It's proposed that Marlow almost never misses a shield stun. To preface, a shield stun is a technique used in shield game modes to disable the enemy's shield, while also knocking them in the air, allowing you to create proper distance, start a potential combo, and further punish the enemy for shielding. To perform this technique, you must double-click with your axe while your opponent's shield is up, when the first click will be used to disable the shield, and the second click will be used to attack the enemy, dealing mostly vertical knockback. Now, in order to support or deny this claim, I watched the entire 40-minute high tier 1 tier test versus Legendary and counted how many times Marlow got a successful shield break versus how many times Legendary got away with shielding a hit or two. Obviously, this is a somewhat rough count due to the criteria, but I tried my best to be pretty accurate and meticulous. For comparison, I also counted Legendary statistics. You guys gotta leave a like for this because it took me quite a while, but at least Legendary was listening to some bangers, so it made it easier. But anyways, let's crunch the numbers. When looking at the number of successful shield breaks between Marlow and Legendary, we see that Marlow landed roughly 199 shield breaks, while Legendary landed roughly 168. I'd like to note that these numbers could be off by 5 or so, but I tried my best to count them as accurately as possible. Considering Marlow won this fight 4-0, it makes sense for her to have landed more hits and therefore more shield breaks, although Legendary evidently put up a good fight. Now, let's look at the amount of times each player messed up, or in other words, how many times they attacked the shield with their sword instead of their axe, dealing 0 damage. Legendary attacked Marlow's shield with his sword about 37 times throughout the whole 40-minute test. Very impressive, meaning he had roughly an 82% success rate on breaking Marlow's shield, which we might expect for a tier 1 player. Marlow, on the other hand, missed twice. Yep, twice. And the second time she missed, she actually landed the shield stun within the same hit, so it's closer to like 1.5, but we'll count it. This means that over the span of 4 games and 40 minutes, Marlow had a 99% success rate on breaking Legendary's shield. I also noticed that Legendary tends to tap his shield for shorter amounts of time, while Marlow often jumps in holding it down, which in theory should make it harder for Marlow to predict and land successful shield breaks or shield stuns, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It's kind of funny because before I began to review this video, I was like, oh, I'm going to make a silly little montage of Marlow messing up. Yeah, that would be a pretty pitiful montage. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide whether or not you think these rates are humanly possible, and if you're doubtful, I recommend you to double check me and watch the full tier test, as I'm not a 1.9 player and might have missed a few things. Despite that, I find it very unlikely that I messed up so much to skew the very obvious statistical deviance that we have here. To me, this seems very suspicious. Of course, as I've been editing this video, a lot more videos and evidence has come out. I apologize if any of the information in this video ends up being covered by other YouTubers who beat me to it, but this also comes with a lot of good, because it's allowed me to corroborate evidence and communicate with other smart and informative creators in the space. One of these creators recently sent me a document containing information suggesting that Marlow may be using macros to allow her to more consistently pull off hard techniques in both Mace and Crystal PvP. As far as I've been told, the creator of this document would prefer to stay anonymous, but if the creator ever puts their name on the document, I of course will update credits to them in the description and pinned comment, because I respect their research a lot. Throughout the video, we've been seeing a bit too much watered down and baseless accusations towards Marlow. If we truly want to push the needle and enforce good behavior as a community, we need to provide statistical evidence with maturity and care, like how I did with the last SMP clip. I'm going to be evaluating everything that this document entails, which ranges from stun slam macros, to attribute swap macros, to respawn anchor macros. So let's get into it. First off, I'd like to state my gripes with this document, which is really only one thing, and that's that all of these calculations will be done in frames, not in ticks. As you may or may not know, the Minecraft hotbar runs at 20 ticks per second. This is why things like Marlow's slot priority system reference tick lockouts in order to ensure actions are sequentially performed in separate ticks. Frames, on the other hand, will naturally line up around these ticks, which would make them a potentially less accurate and frankly unnecessary form of measurement, as they don't provide any additional detail. However, I understand the difficulty in providing accurate tick count in certain cases, so I'm not saying that the document is invalid in any way. I'm just being transparent with its weaknesses. Despite that, the person who created this document seems to well understand video frame blending and frame inconsistencies, which is something that we briefly talked about earlier. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first accusation revolves around Marlow's stun slams. Although the sample size of these are quite low as we only have Marlow's Mace PvP montage to go through, we still see some notable consistency, especially when it comes to the sword to axe to mace to sword action. Performing consistent stun slams is infamously one of the most inconsistent techniques in the game, and it's gotten to the point where videos containing proper methods to make it more consistent tend to go pretty viral. Being able to perform these stun slams at a nearly perfectly consistent rate is suspicious, but due to the low sample size, I can't in good faith accuse Marlow of cheating off of this. However, the attribute swap macro accusation is a little bit different. As you can see here, we have 76 instances of Marlow performing an attribute swap with her sword and mace in her montage, and in all 76 instances, she had her mace equipped for 3 frames or 1 tick. In one of these cases, she had it equipped for 2 frames, but that's not enough deviance to suggest anything. To me, this is very unusual. Yes, performing an attribute swap in 1 tick is realistic, especially for the number 1 player. In fact, I'd argue doing it in the majority of the time is realistic, as all you need to do is swap to the mace, then back to the sword, and it's something you'd likely do hundreds or if not thousands of times in daily practice. However, in a real fight, never failing to be 1 tick, aka 50 milliseconds, aka 3 frames late on an input, ever? Is this realistic to assume it's possible? I'm unsure. Mace is not a game mode I'm good at. In fact, I'm absolutely terrible at it. But I also know how hard it is being perfect at anything in a video game is. And, truthfully, this is as close to perfect as anyone could get. Personally, I think that this is extremely suspicious, and requires some explanation. Finally, we have the respawn anchor macro proof. Thankfully, due to the fact that Marlow has posted a lot of Crystal PvP videos, this section has a total of 102 cases of the frames between Marlow placing an anchor and filling it in with glowstone is. Thankfully, due to the fact that Marlow has posted a lot of Crystal PvP videos, this section has a total of 102 cases of the frames between Marlow placing an anchor and filling it in with glowstone. To me, this is also very suspicious, as there is only 1 instance of Marlow taking 10 frames instead of roughly 7 to perform a normal anchor, and only 1 instance of Marlow taking 7 frames instead of roughly 4 to perform an airplace anchor. Of course, anchoring is one of those actions which can be quickly practiced and performed thousands of times, just like an attribute swap, especially when you're using a keyboard to place blocks, as I've heard Marlow does. However, again, these are perfect and 99% consistent speeds. Is it realistic to assume such a lack of mistakes? Before I saw this document, I was not very suspicious of Marlow in Crystal PvP. I saw it as a mode that she's been taking seriously for so many years, and one that it makes a lot of sense for her to end up being the best at. After seeing this, however, I'm slightly doubtful that even the best can perform at this level of consistency for so long. Whatever you think about this document, it's hard to deny that this isn't the type of evidence that we should be trying to aim for. Anecdotal claims are better than nothing, but data always reigns supreme, and it's the only light when you're in doubt. There's a few more clips circulating around here and there, but just about all of them are instances of sketchy aim and long-range / impossible looking hits. Unfortunately, many of these clips represent the problem with this whole situation, which is that there are too many instances of watered-down, baseless accusations being thrown around in the form of one-off clips that don't prove anything. I know some of these players are trying their best to add their own insight to the conversation, but just about all of these clips can be dismissed as lag from either player, that being a ping spike or high ping in general. I guarantee you that if you look through all the third-person gameplay of any decent player, you'd be able to find dozens of illegal-looking hits, and believe it or not, you don't have to be looking at the enemy on their screen to have your hit go through. All these clips do is make the process of finding out if Marlow is legitimate or not more difficult, and it takes away from how people view the authenticity of those who actually have good points to present. For that reason, I will now end the clip review section and go into a much, much deeper topic, that being Marlow's role as the tier list admin and the tier list system itself. Last year, Marlow acquired ownership of the MC Tiers tier list after a split occurred between the main tier list. After the split, there were two popular tier lists, that being MC Tiers and PvP Tiers. However, as time goes on, MC Tiers remains to be the most popular by a good margin. I've had my gripes with the tier testing system ever since people started to bring it to 1.8 for a few reasons. First off, for the majority of players, your tier is determined by a singular opponent, usually off a combination of score in your fights and how you did. Minecraft PvP is complicated. There's many different factors that influence the direction of a fight, that being your skill set, the ping matchup, and how you're feeling on a given day. For this reason, it's common to be able to lose to someone worse than you one day, then destroy someone better than you the next. Often good players end up in some sort of rock, paper, scissors trifecta, where each one counters the next due to their playstyle and comfort with each other's pings. This combined with the fact that anyone is prone to some form of bias, it's humanly impossible to accurately determine the rating of someone all by yourself. You may think you know better, and yeah, better players generally will have better opinions on how good someone really is, but you're not perfect. Imagine you're tier testing some guy in Sword, and all he does is jump crit you and run away. You might be inclined to give him a lower tier because he's playing like a complete loser. But maybe he's really darn good at playing like a complete loser. Is he a better loser than all the other losers you fight? Probably. And that should be factored into his skill no matter what. You see problems like this all the time when fighting randoms. You'll fight someone who's tier 5 who's way better than you, then someone who's tier 3 who's way worse than you. And don't even get me started on the whole retirement thing. If we keep the same system that we have right now and Marlow decided to retire in every mode today, she would probably still be ranked number 1 in a billion years when the sun burns out. This is obviously illogical, and there should be some sort of legacy list for players who have retired in certain modes to show how they stack up with each other in their primes, not today. Luckily, when you're higher up on the tier list, you tend to have to take more fights to both rise the ranks and defend your title. I think this makes the system a lot better and is actually quite accurate, as long as it's 100% based off of your score. However, we can't just appeal to the tier 1s and tier 2s of the world, so to raise popularity, there should be a better system. To my surprise, Marlow seems to be the one to initially propose this system, that being a more traditional rating system similar to the ELO system. People often ask me if I'm going to get tier tested in boxing or sumo or something like that. I usually just tell them to check my ELO. Obviously, a mathematically backed system is going to be faster and more accurate than a human rating. It's going to allow people to get more fights in, play when they want, and will reward hard work. I've heard some counter-arguments saying that players from other regions will be at a disadvantage, but that's not necessarily the case. It's entirely possible to weigh each region differently on the global leaderboard based off player count, ELO distribution, or other reasons if it's necessary. Marlow already currently owns the largest PvP network in the world, so a system like this is achievable, and it's not like it would be a new thing. We've been using the ELO system since at least 2013 with Kohi. A great other perk is that the ELO system also helps solve the retirement problem. We can have the current ELO leaderboard for each mode, and then we can have a legacy leaderboard containing the peak ELOs for each player and the date in which they achieved their peak. This would showcase how good a player was at a given time and would archive good players' skills so they don't get lost in time forever. If Marlow were to manage to clear her name of all of these allegations and beat the case, I think that her next best step of action would be to implement a system like this as fast as she can, because it's been close to a year now since I've heard talks of it being implemented, but it yet hasn't. It would be a great way to do the community a service and completely skyrocket her reputation. However, due to being the tier list admin, many players are unhappy with the fact that she is participating in competition. I've been seeing many comments on a lot of these Marlow videos saying things like, "Who let the ref play the game?" and "Why is Marlow able to compete if she makes the rules?" Personally, and this may be controversial, I think Marlow should be allowed to compete on her own tier list, but she should be held to the highest standard and should be checked ruthlessly by third-party or unaffiliated staff members to ensure she's legitimate. The problem is, I've been seeing a lot of contradicting information on if she's been screen shared in recent times or not. If any high-up players can clear the air in the comment section, that would be very much appreciated, but I've been unable to find any evidence of Marlow being screen shared after her video, My Experience with the Minecraft PvP Community, where she says that at least in 2021, she was screen shared.
Sometimes I would even have to do my entire tier test while screen sharing, and occasionally even had to grant staff remote access and wait while they searched my entire computer for over an hour. At one point, I was even threatened to be placed on the hacker list if I didn't let one of the managers who was malicious towards me access my computer.
Now, I probably wouldn't want that guy to screen share me either, and it really sucks you had to go through all that horrible stuff. But I mean, yeah, downloading AnyDesk and having them go through your PC is kind of how screen shares usually work. I don't know. The problem is that even if she had been screen shared in recent time, was he screen shared by someone close with her? Someone high up on her team? Maybe this is sounding a bit conspiratorial, but you can see how a lot of people don't like that the ref should be able to play the game, or at least why there's a lot of problems with it occurring. I also think the bottom line is that with all of these accusations being thrown around, being the owner of the tier list and, oh look at that, also happening to be number 1 ranked on said tier list doesn't help your case very much, even if their claims are invalid. I also think that having to share your screen, or at the very least record your gameplay with a hand cam and mouse and keyboard sounds during a tier test, should be necessary for at least tier 1 and tier 2 fights. It's not like this is some crazy forbidden sin or anything like that, and I hope most people share the same opinion as me there, especially since we're playing a game without an anti-cheat, which quite literally supports and promotes modding. Really, it's the bare minimum, and if I had Marlow's gameplay and sounds, we'd basically be able to debunk every single clip. Now, of course, I don't expect her to record everything she does, but a lot of these accusations could be prevented. All in all, I think that if there's one claim that's valid from the community in this video, it would have to be this one. There's obviously a conflict of interest between being the number 1 player and being the owner of the tier list, which determines who the number 1 player is, and it's evident that is a rough idea for the sake of the community. Now that we're done with that section, it's time to get into some juicy controversy. Over the last few months, a player by the name of Rapture has taken over the competitive Mace community, eventually rising to be the only high tier 1 in the game. And, by the way, I promise that this has to do with Marlow, so if you don't mind, just hear me out for a bit. Thanks. Unfortunately for Rapture, a few weeks ago he also got himself into some controversy surrounding the possibility of him cheating, mostly for his weird shield disables, hits, and knockback. Sounds pretty familiar. I won't go too deep into all of the Rapture clips because obviously most people didn't click on this video for that, but to sum it all up, I'll just show you a funny one. I mean, give the poor guy a screeny, bro. Jesus. I just thought that was funny to me. Okay, fine. I'll show you one more. Alright, yeah, I think that's enough. Anyway, my first introduction to Rapture was just about a month ago, when I got recommended his video titled Tier 1 Test, Rapture vs. Marlow. Since I saw it was gaining views quickly, I decided to click on it, and immediately after I finished watching it, I was suspicious of his aim, as I thought it looked somewhat inhuman, along with the fact that it reminded me of Marlow's aim. Before this whole controversy even began, I wrote a comment on this video showing that I was sketched out about the whole thing. So when Rapture posted a video a week later titled, I paid Marlow $100 for every kill, I naturally clicked on it. Now, here's when things are going to get really opinionated. After hearing Rapture's voice, I began to suspect he might be using some sort of voice changer, whether it be real-time or simply an AI voiceover. There's some low qualityness to his voice which I can't exactly pinpoint, combined with the fact that it's entirely devoid of emotion. Like, you'd think if this guy is losing thousands of dollars by the minute, he might feel some sort of emotion, or at least I don't know, try to pretend to.
Bro, you could win, you just gotta... Oh, never mind. Yeah, my wallet is fried now.
Interestingly, ever since I heard Marlow's voice for the first time, I also felt the same way. They both have this strange, low qualityness to their voice, but it doesn't even sound like they have bad or peaky mics. It just sounds like it's at a low bitrate. To be honest, Marlow's voice sounds somewhat believable though. I wouldn't be surprised if she's using some sort of AI voice changer, but the low qualityness could simply be the result of a poor mic. On top of this, there's a few videos where Marlow's voice seems much more real and believable. One of these videos is RKY's video titled, I Mastered Minecraft PvP in 5 Days, which, funny enough, I actually happen to be in. In this video, Marlow sounds completely fine, but I'll let you guys hear it.
From the best. I suck. Really bad.
Well, it's fine. I'll show you some useful tactics. What I'm going to show you is called the Pearl Flash. That's really useful for if you're coming in for an encounter. You can Pearl Flash and then go for a hit crystal. That's pretty much a hit crystal. So when someone anchors, it creates kind of a hole, which leads to a very, very deep fight. I'll give you kind of an example.
In Rapture's case, I'm a bit less certain. I've used a lot of real-time voice changers in the past just to mess with my friends, such as W. Okada, and it sort of reminded me of how they sound. AI voices tend to have a problem with mimicking human emotion, which is why a lot of the modern real-time voice changers are developing options that would help you mimic certain tones or emotions. I'm gonna let the real Master Oogway give his take on all of this real quick.
Why hello, Mario Kart 617 community. It is I, Master Oogway, and I would like to be inclined to say that Marlow is legitimate.
Alright, Master Oogway, thanks bro, that's not very helpful, but alright. Anyway, earlier, by pure chance, I found a new video from someone named Gastro. Apparently, someone managed to get Rapture on a Discord call, and got him to sing to prove his voice was legit. I'll play the clip now.
Ascended beyond your control, or was it all your intention?
Okay.
They have
According to Gastro's video, Rapture's vocal cords hit a peak of 13.1 kHz during the short clip of him singing. He suggested that this was too low and stable, implying Rapture's voice was likely AI. He also put his voice into an AI voice detector, which came back saying it was 2% legitimate. I personally do not know this website or service for this AI voice detector, so I would take it with a grain of salt, but it is interesting. The problem with Gastro's evidence is actually stated by him, which is that this clip of him singing was likely recorded through a Discord call, which is limited to, at best, 96 kilobits per second, which would cause a lack of higher frequencies due to the lower fidelity. He claims that this isn't enough counter-evidence because Rapture doesn't stop to take a breath while singing, nor does he stop when the other person in the call tells him to. This is fair enough, but the other person talking in the background is pretty quiet, and due to the noise suppression on Rapture's end, it would be pretty hard to hear if he did take a breath. Also, the claim about intelligibility and sibilance being below 16 to 18 kHz isn't inherently correct. Most speech intelligibility occurs between 1 kHz and 4 kHz, and most sibilance, like the s or the t sound, occurs between 4 kHz and 8 kHz. Frequencies of those higher levels add a lot of quality or air to the audio, which could explain why Rapture's voice sounds off. If you're wondering about Marlow's voice or even my voice, I'll put both of them up on the screen right now so you can compare them if you're curious. And if anyone who is competent at audio analysis or spectrograms wants to chip in, feel free to leave a comment. It would go a long way. I want to clarify that there's nothing inherently wrong with using an AI voice changer. Let's assume the worst and say that both Marlow and Rapture are using AI voices. They absolutely have the right to do that. But with a lot of the recent events going on, I've been seeing a small but vocal community of people who believe that Marlow and Rapture might actually be the same person. After watching Rapture's aim the first time, it popped into my head that there might be something strange going on quite quickly, but I didn't necessarily think that they were the same person or anything. Obviously, there's not enough evidence to really conclude anything about this, so I'll spitball a few more possibilities for you to think about, really just some food for thought. Obviously, I'm not trying to make any conclusions here. This is all extreme speculation, but I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, and it's just another weird thing to think about. First off, Rapture seemingly came out of nowhere. First video 2 months ago, already knows how to edit a high quality video, knows how to produce proper render settings, knows how to make or hire someone to make good thumbnails, good titles, and descriptions. Hell, he even upscaled his video to 4K. This is already extremely rare for a new creator, and it's not a skill that you're just born with. Anyone who has tried to make a good YouTube video knows this. Second off, both Marlow and Rapture type in very similar and proper grammar. I obviously can't really prove this because it's such a vague point, but I'll throw in some of their descriptions or pinned comments up on screen so you can read them. I find that most people on the internet tend to not really care for using grammar, at least in the gaming space, but at the very least, people tend to have different writing styles. For example, take note on how both Marlow and Rapture use this little hyphen trick to separate their sentences, or how they both use commas more often than the average person, or how they both link MC tiers in their descriptions, or how they both put the period and verses in their titles. I'm no expert in linguistics, but English has always been the only subject I'm really good at. In fact, I would consider myself quite gifted at it, so perhaps my observations have some merit, but there's also a chance I'm just being schizo about it, so let me know what you think. Whatever the case, the seemingly obvious counter-argument to all of this is that Marlow and Rapture fought for Rapture's high tier 1 test. How could Marlow beat Rapture if they obviously fought? I don't know. Maybe Marlow got a trusted friend to play on her account that's good at the game, or more likely they're just different people altogether. I don't know the full truth here, but I did say we were going to get conspiratorial and wild in this section, didn't I? Well, that's enough of that, so I'm now going to go into the final section, where I go into my personal reason that for some reason nobody talks about why I think Marlow is cheating. Past this point of the video, I'm going to be going into a lot of my own opinions on what's been going on with this whole situation. Up until now, I've mostly just been showcasing and reviewing the popular clips that have been going around involving Marlow. Now that you guys are caught up with all of the known information about the situation, I'll be diving deep into a lot of things that people don't talk about too much. Again, please remember to be open-minded. All that I will be doing is proposing ideas and theories that could be suspicious, even if they get a bit wild. I will not be trying to destroy anyone's reputation mentioned. All I like to see is what comes out of this all for the community's sake. Like I said at the start of the video, I've known about Marlow for close to 4 years now, and due to the virality of her videos, over the years I've been recommended most of them. I never thought much of anything until about 3 months ago, when I checked out Marlow's video titled Tier 1 Minecraft 1.21 Mace PvP Montage. And let me tell you that I'm not even really going to bother writing a script for this section, because holy fucking shit, I have never seen more play in aimbot in my life. In fact, for a good while, I thought everyone was basically trolling me, because for some reason nobody mentions this montage at all in their exposed videos. Like, hello? Like, are we watching the same video? I don't know. But yeah, I sent it to a few of my friends after I watched it, because like I really just couldn't believe what I was seeing in front of my eyes. And they basically all agreed with me that they thought it was pretty suspicious. In the background of this section, I'll probably just be showing like various clips which I find are suspicious, which is basically every frame of the whole montage, but obviously I can't show the whole thing. Alright, I think I'm going to go back on script now. In general, what I find suspicious are her reactions after hitting someone with a mace. She often does this unusual tracking to the left or right before following the target forward. There's really no reason to be aiming in these directions when you know that the target is most likely going to take knockback in the direction that you dive bomb them on from with the mace, but if you look closely, she's always aiming at the correct angle between her hitbox and the opponent's hitbox. When she maces the enemy right here, she sort of ends up to the left of him a little bit, and for some reason flicks to the right before tracking the opponent in the angle you'd expect them to go. She does this with so much unnecessary confidence and accuracy that it's just so blatant to me. Unfortunately, this is one of those things where I don't really have any proof for it, but you either see it or you don't. If I were the staff of the MC Tiers team and I saw this gameplay, I would immediately call for a screen share or a hand cam. In order to try and prove it to you guys though, I downloaded a cheat and I'm going to roll a clip of me explaining my thoughts on what type of settings I think she's using to assist her aim. Alright guys, so here's a demonstration of the aimbot that I think, I'm sorry my mic was turned down, that I think that Marlow and Rapture might be using. So here's a, I don't know, let's go with this cow right here, right? So here's this cow. As you can see, no issues aiming on this cow. I can move around. Once I pull out my sword, I have perfect aimbot on the cow. Now obviously I'm not going to tell you guys what client I'm using. Don't worry about it. You might see my Windows Defender open up here. Don't worry, I only downloaded something a little bit sketchy. Don't worry, I should be fine, hopefully. But yeah, this cow here. So let's say I'm playing mace PvP versus this cow. In fact, let me grab the mace just to make it make sense. If I'm playing mace PvP against this cow, right, and I'm entering his range, I'm flying into the elytra or whatever, you know, and then I go ahead and I switch to the mace, right? Makes sense, okay? Once I enter his range, I will begin to aimbot on him. Wow. Pretty cool, huh? Now, as you might see, it doesn't actually matter where I'm looking vertically. I am aimbotting on this cow underneath me right now. If I aim right at him, I'm aimbotting on him. If I aim up in the sky, I'm still aimbotting around him. If I go into F5, you can see that, right? This is what I think that Marlow and Rapture are using, okay? Because if you look very closely, their vertical aim is nothing astounding. It's actually quite average. Their horizontal aim, on the other hand, is like Jesus. Like, I've never seen anything like it. This is really convenient for Mace, because in Mace, you often need to do stuff like purling on an enemy who's flying through the air, and this might require some sort of like trajectory, right? Because obviously pearls fall down. Peep the tracking, alright. But yeah, like you might want control over your vertical aim. Like if you're flying through the air with an elytra in Mace, right? Like you don't always want to be stuck looking at a target, right? If you're stuck looking at this cow, you're gonna dive bomb into that cow, right? Often when you're using an elytra, you want to be able to look up and down, right? Obviously, I don't know how to fly with the elytra, but you get the point. But just having that horizontal aimbot will make it nearly impossible or very difficult for you to miss a target. So I can do something like that, but I can also do something like this. I didn't move my mouse at all. Still not moving my mouse. Chicken should be hard, right? Oh, okay, the grass is in the way. Let me try that again. Okay, I'm awful at this. There we go. You see? Now, obviously, that was really blatant, and I don't think they're using it at that high settings. Also, I wasn't moving my mouse to make it look more obvious. They're probably, you know, moving their mouse, obviously. But, you know, if I aim with it, you can't really tell, right? Like, okay, well, there was... All right, that was a little bit blatant. If there's only one enemy, you can't really tell, right? But this would explain why they have those, like, inhuman reactions to someone turning left or right after you hit... Like, for example, if I hit the sheep right here with a wooden sword, right, so I don't kill it, you see I kind of, like, reacted to him turning right? That wouldn't really be possible, right? I hope you guys get the point I'm trying to get at here, where I think it's only horizontal aimbot and not vertical. Alright, I think I've made my point clear. I'm going to delete these cheats now. Yeah. So, yeah, I hope that made sense to you guys, but to sum it up, I think Marlow is likely using a strong horizontal aimbot with a high range on it, a delay on it, and only on sword and mace. I don't think she's using vertical aimbot because it would be A, too obvious, and B, likely a disadvantage due to the fact that it might mess with your elytra angles, pearl angles, and straight down or straight up wind charges. I also don't think she's using aimbot on items like elytra or a chest plate, and I think this clip shows that pretty well. If you look closely, you can see her aim locking on when she's holding a weapon, but not when controlling her flight. If you're curious, in the case of Rapture, I think that he's basically using the same thing, if not on a bit weaker settings though. All in all though, that sums up my personal reasons for why I think Marlow is cheating. You can of course make your own conclusion if you think she's aimbotting or not, but to me it's pretty obvious and damning. And it's unfortunate to me that I can't prove something like this. But if you happen to be a high-level aimer, say in Voltaic or in a top rank in a shooter game or aim trainer and want to provide your opinion in the comments, it would be much appreciated whether you think she's legit or not. If you watched through this whole video, congratulations and thank you. I tried my best to be as open-minded as possible when reviewing and analyzing dozens of clips, and only tried to provide the most talked about and divisive clips. We first talked about Marlow's Crystal PvP allegations, then her suspicious clips in other modes, then finally got into some real statistics and evidence that could help form a real strong argument backed by evidence. We also talked about others like Rapture and Swight, and discussed how they fit into the bigger picture. And finally, I brought my own opinions and evidence into the video as well. I'd like to thank everyone who created videos on this topic like Sub4Giro, Malik, NiceCrit, Critically, and more. I'd also like to thank anyone who's remained civil and really used their brain throughout all of this. Your help goes a long, long way. I hope my summary and recap of the clips helped catch you up to speed on the allegations, or at least jog your memory on potential suspicious clips. And most importantly, I hope my commentary helped get you thinking so you can form your own opinion on if you think Marlow is cheating or not. I wish I could come out with this video with a conclusive verdict for all of you guys, like a yes, Marlow is cheating, or a no, Marlow is legit, but unfortunately it's way more complicated than that. Unfortunately, I hold no power in this community to gain any more information than we already have. Thankfully, that's where all of you guys watching come in. Together, we can bring a lot of change to this community, and that's why I stepped out of my comfort zone and made this video in the first place. Really, I'm just a 1.8 YouTuber who doesn't get on the game all that much and has an inconsistent upload schedule. But more importantly, I have an audience and a duty to hold any player up to the standards that they should hold up to me. The Minecraft PvP scene is a complicated one, and I don't know where all of this is going to lead us, but I know that eventually, the truth will come free. And whether you and I are right or wrong won't matter if we try our best. No matter what comes out of all of this, I wish all the best to Marlow, Rapture, Swight, and all the other creators and players involved. And thank you very much for watching. Peace out.